Hello, my name's Nancy. I'm a public education specialist with the Fort Worth Public Library under the Early Childhood Matters program. Today, you're in for a treat. Two of my friends will be joining me, and together we are going to create 3 different types of fairy reading nooks. All the items that we have used are items that we had around our homes. Do you want to know how we made our fairy reading nooks? Then let's get started. Do you use your imagination? Do you love to play outdoors? Then making a fairy reading nook is not only a great way that your child can build on those imagination skills, but it will strengthen the love of reading outdoors. Children are natural helpers. So we are going to have them help us create a fairy reading nook just for the fairies that live outdoors. In this time of COVID-19 when we're stuck indoors, this is a great opportunity that we can show children that we can still play outside and use our imagination and read. Our imagination is such a powerful, wonderful, beautiful thing that I think a little part of us still wishes that fairies were real. But let's create a fairy reading nook that the fairies will enjoy, but that your children will also have fun exploring their outdoors. So first I'm going to show you how I created a fairy reading nook for my backyard. So the items that you will need for my fairy house are listed here. And these are just supplies that I had around the house from other projects that I had been doing. Alright, so I'm going to show you just how I created my fairy reading nook. So I took an old milk carton, okay? And what I did was I cut out some holes for some windows. And what I did was I glued on some sticks and some moss and grass that I had. I also found these great sequences that I had from a leftover project, and so I glued those to my big window. And then here where the milk usually comes out, I'm going to pretend it's the fairy's roof, and so I want sparkly flowers to come out, and so that's why I glued on flowers there. But as you can see, I just went along and I just glued on different items. And even on the top here, I found some leaves and I found some bark. So I glued it on there as well. It didn't take me very long, but what takes the longest is when you do each side, because you're putting on glue, you have to let it dry for a couple hours before you move on to the next side of your house. Some of the other things that I did was I created a little window right here, but I made some curtains. You could too if you wanted to. Here is the front of the fairy house. So here is the front door, and you can see I put a rock there as if it was the doorknob. Okay, so some of the other items that I made was because I started thinking, what are the fairies going to sit on? How are they going to feel comfortable reading? Because I know when I want to read a book, I want to get in a cozy spot so I have time to just enjoy what I'm reading. So I had some leftover rocks and some leftover sticks. So I thought, how can I make some furniture for the fairies to sit? So I found some rocks that I had and I glued them together. I thought, what a great couch this might be. So I used a flat rock and one that was kind of shaped like a triangle, and I glued them together. I had to use super glue to make sure that it really stuck together. So I created this one, then I created this one. This is a little bit bigger, but again, a flat rock and then like a rounded rock. And then I created this one, which this could be like a love seat or it could be a recliner for the fairies, right? But then I thought, well, the fairies will have somewhere to sit, but what about if they're drinking lemonade or if they need a place to put their books. So I thought, how can I create a little table for my fairies? So what I did was I grabbed this flat rock, and then I had these 3 sticks, and then I glued them together to make a little table. So you see, it's just a little table for my fairies. And then I thought, well, what else can I put inside? So I found these great little books that I'm going to put inside my fairy house so that way the fairies will have something to read in their reading nook. After the fairies are done reading, I thought, well, what else can I make for things that the fairies can do while they're in their reading nook? So I thought, what do I like to do when I'm done reading a good book? I like to paint. So I created an easel for the fairies to paint. I used 3 sticks and I tied it with some yarn, and then I just used some cardboard, and here I created an easel for the fairies to paint. Now the fairies need paint, right? So I also created, just using a cap from a water bottle, I just colored on some colors, and then I grabbed a little stick and I thought, why not use this as their paint? So fairies now have paint and they have an easel where they can paint while they're in their fairy nook. So those are just a couple of items that I'm going to put into my fairy nook. Now I want to take you to my friend Maria's house. She's going to show us how she created a fairy reading nook with items that she has around her house. Do you think that it'll be different than mine? Maybe. Let's find out. Let's head over to Maria's house.
Hi everyone, my name is Maria and this is my garden. I've got a gnome, I've got some rocks, some pretty flowers, but I have no place for my fairies to read. I just got through talking to my friend Nancy and she said that she's working on a fairy nook, and guess what? I want to work on one too. Y'all want to come with me? Let's go. Here's some of the materials that you might need. Some tape, scissors, a cardboard container, markers, rocks, toothpicks, flowers, paper plates or paper, and you can add any other thing that you'd like to make this as creative and fun as possible. Here I cut a doorway for the fairies to get in. If you need your parents' help, make sure to ask them. Make sure not to throw away this little piece of cardboard that you might have left, because we're going to make some books out of it too. Here I decorated a shell so my fairies would have a place to sit and read. And I also inserted the toothpicks inside some of the flowers I found in my garden. That way the fairies could have something beautiful to look at while they're reading. Our fairy nook isn't complete without some books, right? Here are some of my favorites. Goodnight Moon, Rainbow Fish, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and even The Cat in the Hat. What are some of your favorite books? And there you have it, an easy fairy nook for your garden. Let's see what my friend Minerva is doing.
Okay, I'm going to show you as I'm gluing my rocks with the glue gun and some of my outdoor rocks. Need some more glue stick so that we can make sure all of our rocks are glued, because we will be reading to our fairies along with our reading buddies Esco and Smokey. This one doesn't seem to want to stay, but we'll make it stay. You almost ready, Esco? So I hope you liked my little fairy reading nook that I created just for me and my reading buddies. I no longer have little people in my house. Espero que les haya gustado mi casita de hada para lectura. Lo creé para los amigos que leen conmigo. Ahí lo tienen. Y es un espacio donde nosotros podemos estar relajándonos. Me gustan mucho las plantas. Esta planta la escogí por una razón de que me lo regalaron mis niños. Eso es muy especial para mí. Cuando digo niños, ya son jóvenes adultos. Pero como vieron a Esco ahí caminando allá hacia atrás, se los leo a mis gatitos y le leo a mi perrito. So I read to my little dog, and as you saw little Esco back there, he is also one of my reading buddies. And I'd like to recommend a couple of books to you. Les voy a recomendar algunos libros. Everyone Gets Upset. Para los niños pequeñitos, que usualmente no pueden estar alrededor de las plantas, pero puedes enseñarles cuáles son sus límites, y las plantas es una de ellas. Otra que me gusta es el Apágame la luz, porque enseña la rutina del dormir o, nos ayuda a relajar al niño para cuando nos vayamos a dormir. Y por último, Hugs and Kisses. Leslie Patricille. Espero que les haya gustado mi casita de hada para lectura. I hope you've enjoyed my little reading nook. And now we're going to go back with Miss Nancy. Ahora vamos a regresar con la señora Nancy. Hasta luego.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you guys had fun visiting my friend Maria's house and my friend Minerva's house. Did you check out the fairy reading nooks they made? Weren't those so amazing? Just think, you can make one of those houses as well. Aren't you excited? I am so excited to see what type of fairy reading nook you make. Now, when you're all done with your fairy reading nook, you might think about going and visiting your fairy reading nook every day. And try reading to the fairies. You might not be able to see them, but they will be able to see you and hear you as you read to them. I have 2 books that I checked out from the library that I thought might be good for you to check out and you to read. So the first book that I checked out was called Stella, Fairy of the Forest. And it's this great little fairy that lives in the forest, and she does all kinds of stuff. The other book that I thought was really good was The Great Sock Secret. And this book is about a little girl who keeps losing her socks, and her mom is wondering, where are they going? But what her mom doesn't know is that this little girl has fairies in her bedroom who take her socks, and they make parachutes and sleeping bags and fancy dresses out of her socks. So this is another good book that you could read to the fairies when you're outdoors. Also, don't forget to check out the Libby app. There's lots of books that you can read to the fairies while you're outside visiting them. I want to give a big thank you to Maria and Minerva for letting us visit their house. And I want to thank every single one of you for watching this video. I hope you had fun, and I hope you create a fairy reading nook in your backyard. If you do, please share with us at the Fort Worth Public Library. We would love to see what you guys came up with. Thanks for watching, everyone. And don't forget to check out our social media pages, Facebook and Instagram, and our YouTube channel with the Fort Worth Public Library. Till next time, bye!